this will sound weird, but I just find that I love these women. I don't know them, but I love them. And because they haven't been loved by the people that should have loved them, should have cared for them, should have protected them, I feel that I want to take the place of whoever should have done that. So it's a very, very sad thing to deal with. As a police officer, 30 years I've been investigating crime, and I've learned to compartmentalise. You can't bring your emotions home all the time. You can't think about things all the time, but still you do. Still you do.
She was a very calm and quiet person. She loved to see people happy. She did not like arguments. She didn't want people raising their voice. She hated it. She just wanted a happy life. She wanted, a family.
I'm wondering if you want to speak. Who killed Banaz? You're innocent, then who killed Banaz? Who killed Banaz?
People following me, or still now they follow me. Anytime, if anything happens to me, it's them.
They killed her there just for being in love. I mean, sometimes I am thinking why love should be so hated.
If she was in my life would be orange and yellow.
Banaz lived here.
A young Kurdish woman in London is the victim of a so-called honour killing. Coming up, the crime her family says she committed that led to...
Banaz disappeared in 2006.
Banaz was a caring, loving young woman with the whole of her life in front of her. And that life has been brutally cut short by the very people that should have loved her and protected her.
Caroline Good led the search for her body and her killers. All that is left is a few fragments of her life.
I've never seen a photograph in that house of Banaz. There's not a single photograph of Banaz on display. I guess they don't want to remember her. My take on that was that they simply wanted to erase her from the earth and therefore to be no trace of her.
Banaz's family tried to erase her because they thought she'd brought them dishonor. This is her story. She was born in Iraq in 1985. She had a brother and 4 sisters.
She had a nickname, Naska, means softness, like delicate. Like how a newborn lamb, like soft baby or, delicate flower, That was her nickname, Naska.
Bekal is her older sister. She wears a veil, not because she wants to, but because she has to. She lives in hiding because she testified against her own family. She agreed to give us an interview to preserve Banaz's memory.
She had long eyelashes, hazel eyes, she had apple cheekbones, she had this heart-shaped face. She had the most gorgeous dumpling chin, like she had a little dimple in her chin. She was beautiful. I mean, you could look at her forever.
In the countries that we are from, women has absolutely no rights. No rights for custody for children, no rights for divorce, no rights to choose their partner.
Part of this control is the control of their sexuality. For the sisters, this started early in life.
I recall I was about 8. My dad and all the men was all going out of the house. My dad took a different jacket or a coat with him, and I thought, why didn't he take this one? So I see this bottle of alcohol sticking out of it. I took something else out. It was a big bundle of cotton wool and a big blade, just a raw blade. Half an hour later, I hear screaming from my grandma's bedroom, and my sister was dragged to that room. She was stripped, waist down, and they performed that on her. While you're awake, not sedated, no numbness, no nothing, just flesh just cut off you. Me and my cousin, as soon as we saw that, we ran as fast as we could. I did not want to go into that room.
Apart from the youngest daughter in the family, all of the other sisters were circumcised.
You wouldn't imagine that needing to be done. And then it was my turn. I was fighting. I did not want to be going through that. As she's gone to cut me, she's turned to look where the alcohol bottle is, and she's cut me so badly. It's one of those things that you wouldn't wish on your enemy. Apparently, it's done to keep a woman so you don't feel sexual, and they're trying to basically stop you from feeling that way.
Banaz's family came to London in 1995 as refugees from Saddam Hussein. She was 10 years old.
We really know very little about Banaz's early life. Most of the information that I have comes from her teacher. Teacher spoke very, very highly of Banaz. She was very soft and nurturing, and really acted as a little mother towards her younger sisters.
She was just an ordinary kid growing up in South London.
She had to struggle with different culture, home culture, British culture, and she had all her life ahead of her.
I don't think that young woman had any social network whatsoever. Now, Banaz had no friends at all that I'm aware of.
We appealed for friends of Banaz, but no one came forward.
Banaz's father is Mahmod Mahmod. He's the eldest of the brothers, and Ari is the younger brother.
It was Ari. He had all the power over the family because he was a very wealthy man.
When our forefathers came to Western Shores, they didn't leave all their cultural hang-ups and all their baggage. Their culture came with them. It was part of it.
For a lot of immigrant men, coming over to a Western country involves quite a drop in status.
You know, Mahmud Mahmud and Ari Mahmud, well, they were tribal people. It's harder for the men and the boys to give up what was their primacy in their home culture. And so the men take refuge in what are established cultural mores for them.
And this can lead to a kind of intensification of this need to retrieve some kind of dignity from keeping control of their sisters, of their wives.
Bekal wanted to live life like any teenager. But soon she ran into trouble with her father.
I wasn't allowed to have my nails long. I wasn't allowed to pluck my eyebrows. You know, perfume all of those kind of things.
Women have much more autonomy here. Women deal with that well because, of course, it gives them something they've not had before. But for the men, it's much harder because the women who would unquestionably obey them in the past perhaps don't have that attitude in the same way. And certainly for the generation growing up, it's much more difficult because all their friends, what they see on the television, all cultural influences tend to suggest they should have autonomy and the power to make their own decisions. And then, of course, their family structures are the opposite of that.
I was getting a lot of beatings, I have to say. It was a lot of nasty beatings, you know. I left home when I left several times, but the first time I think I left, I was just under 16.
Mahmod had tried unsuccessfully to persuade her to come back to the family home. He was seen to lose face within the community because he couldn't control what his daughters were doing.
I don't think we really understand, as Westerners, what it's like to have a big collective family, to have a family name, to have a family reputation. We're a very individualistic society. The family name is like a brand.
And it's about your reputation. It's literally about your face, how you are perceived by others.
If they have a woman that doesn't conform, then that is going to impact upon them. They might be cut out of the economic life of the community. They might not be able to shop, they might not be able to trade. Because their behaviour reflects not upon themselves, but upon everyone around them, upon the whole collective, the whole family, the whole community.
In 2002, the family tried to restore its honour.
When I left home, I still kept in contact with my brother. I would call him every now and then. And I remember this particular time when I called him, he was very persuasive. He was very, you know, adamant that he wanted to meet me.
He lured her to a remote location and he got her to carry a suitcase, walk along that path in front of me, don't turn around, don't look at what I'm doing.
And he just hit me over the head with a dumbbell, a single arm weight. He put his arm around my neck, lifting me off my feet almost. You know, me panicking, I started moving around, trying to get myself free from him. I bit his arm, in that bend of his arm, and he let go, and then I dropped to the floor. He's trying to drag me by my feet on my back, and I kicked on his knee, and he let go of me, and I stopped him. I said to him, look what you're doing. You're actually trying to kill me. And I'm screaming it out to him, and he stopped for a minute and he started crying like a woman, really, really crying. And he said, I'm really sorry, but I'm the big boy, I'm the big man. After my dad, I have to do this, put a shame to an end. That is exactly his words, actually. And he told me that my dad actually paid him. My dad paid him to do this to me. His plan was basically to kill me. So he had to take care of me, try and get rid of me, the problem.
Bekal did not report her brother and went into hiding.
So all of this was going on in the background before Banaz and what happened to her.
At the age of 17, Banaz was married. His name was Ali.
It was an arranged marriage, a man that she'd only ever met on one previous occasion. And he was literally just off the plane from Iraq.
They had absolutely nothing in common.
He was illiterate and very strongly adherent to that Kurdish culture, so what she would describe as very old-fashioned.
These societies are traditionally patrilocal. When a woman is married, she moves in to the household of her husband, to the household of her husband's father, and that she lives there with the relatives of her husband, that she's, in fact, quite isolated from her own family. There is a kind of pride in arranging good marriages, which may not be good marriages in the quality of the relationship, but are good marriages in that they build the status of the family. And that's why she has to behave herself that represents her family, that keeps that relationship between the two families strong.
Have a seat right there. It's comfy for you.
After 2 years of marriage, in 2005, Banaz went to the police.
Good morning, Banaz.
Good morning.
She said she wanted to make a report about the way her husband had been treating her.
So describe your relationship then from the very early stages through to when things started to go wrong for you.
He was just like he was thinking like in 50 years back, like he was a strict husband. Whenever he wanted to have sex, it was just his way, always his way. Like whenever I said no, or he wouldn't take no for an answer, and he would just start raping me and doing what he liked to do. I tried to stop him, but he would slap me or hit me on the back or just pull me by the hair. I just started to like cover my body, like hold on like that. That's it. That's when he said to me he would kill me if I said anything to anyone. I would get out of the bedroom, go to the bathroom. I cried a lot, but when I came out, he just acted like nothing has happened. And I was just 17 there. And, some of the times it was in the living room that he raped me, or in the bedroom. I didn't know if this was normal in my culture or in here. I was only 17, so I just let him do what he liked. Whenever he raped me, it was like I was his shoe and he would wear it just whenever he felt like it. Ali had told me to, if anyone had seen me, just tell them that you fell in the bathroom. He made me believe that my family had loved him more than they loved me, and if I ever told anyone that he would kill me, or that I've got no family around me and they're far away from me, so he could do anything with me as he liked. I didn't try to defend myself or anything. I just cried, and that was it.
After I left her, I went to visit her, and I did say to her, I said, you know, you look run down. And she said, yeah, I'm not enjoying my life. I'm doing just exactly what he tells me to do. Cleaning and cooking and everything else that he wanted her to do.
On one occasion, we just had guests, and in my culture, like, women aren't, when they're married to their husbands, they're not allowed to call them by their names. Okay. So in front of the guest, I had called him by his name. So after the guest left, he told me that if I called him by his name the next time, even if there was a guest, he would stick a knife in me, throw a knife in me, no matter how far within that room I was from him. I tried to explain to him that, like, we're living in Britain, in the UK, and I was shocked because it's just a name. You know, it's not going to do any harm.
He was, you know, physically, verbally, emotionally, and every other way you can think of, abusing her, degrading her. You know, all you're good for is doing, you know, being a housewife, and for this and for that. You're not good for nothing else.
So he was getting worse and worse. Some of the times that he had beat me up or he was abusive towards me, I had to write it down in a diary. Mm-hmm. And I have taken some pictures of my body, like when he's been up the bruises and stuff like that, and the clothes that he's ripped off me, but he had got hold of them and he knew that I wrote it down in a diary, so he destroyed them all. And because he had kicked me so much, like, in the head, my lips were bleeding, my ears were bleeding, and he had, like, twisted my hand really strongly. So one of the bones, it has, like, stand out from my other wrist. From then, I couldn't remember things so good, like, when he kicked my head in, that really affected me. Like, now I've got a loss of memory, I can't remember things, and most of the times when I'm cleaning my ears, it bleeds.
That's only one example out of many, many occasions when he was either physically or sexually abusive towards her. So that Banaz kept a secret from her family while she was trying to be a good wife to her husband. But eventually one of her sisters found out, and through that sister the rest of the family were made aware, and Ali was challenged about his behaviour. And he admitted, yeah, I do beat your daughter, but it's because she's disrespectful. And I do force her to have sex, but, you know, only when she says no. So that is something the family found acceptable and sent her back to try harder to be a better wife to her husband.
She wanted to leave him and to have a different life, to go back home and stay with my mum and my dad. My dad wasn't happy. You know, and the community started turning on my family and my uncle and my dad and had meetings about it. And the decision was made by my family, male members.
I left him several times. I went back to my parents. But because for a Muslim female like me, it's very hard to get a divorce, and so I had to go back to him several times.
Because it's always, you know, the men that get together and discuss whose life, you know, discuss my sister's life. That's who it was that decided, you know, the men.
I was brainwashed into, like, it would be, how I would be putting shame onto the family if I got divorced or separated from him. We'd have meetings with my parents, all of the family sit down. Because I had no other choice but to go back to him.
Banaz did go back and did try harder to be a better wife and to please her husband, but eventually she couldn't take any more of that.
A couple of months after, I made up on my mind that I wanted divorce. So I made his dinner. I set at the table and put his dinner. I had a coffee in my hands and I was just watching the TV. He said to me, look at yourself in the mirror, like how you've become so skinny and ugly. And I was nothing but a whore. And so straight away with his mobile, I called my mum and I said that I want a divorce, no matter what, by this afternoon. I was really angry, shouting down the phone. And I packed some of my personal things, just like brushes and things, and I left. I think that was the last argument that we had.
She just had enough. I think it was just a time for her to just leave it all and just, you know, get away from that. But of course, leaving your husband in my culture is not allowed. It's the worst thing to do for a woman.
In interview, Mahmod described him as the David Beckham of son-in-laws. He really thought very, very highly of Ali Abbas, even knowing what he had done to his daughter. He was someone that was held in very high regard, which is, you know, all the more reason when Banaz did leave her husband, it's brought shame, it's embarrassed them. She's failed to live up to the standards of a good wife. So it's brought shame on the family here in the UK. It's brought shame on the family back in Iraqi Kurdistan. So, you know, it's no small thing, it's a big deal.
You have to imagine what it's like to want to come forward and report or tell somebody about what's happening to you in your home. Everything that you knew and everything that you loved will have to be given up the moment you report this to somebody. Everything, your family, your friends, where you grew up, all the people around you.
Women from communities that have this honour ethos are they're under a form of constant surveillance. It's the eyes of the community, it's the young men of the community that are looking for them, that are keeping an eye out for any behaviour that's untoward, and that they're feeding this back constantly into the family. And it's this kind of constant surveillance that women get used to.
The way they dress, the way they fashion their hair, the makeup they wear, the friends they keep, the social hours they keep, where they go out, who they spoke to, what was said. They do not have the freedoms which a white Anglo-Saxon woman would have. They have to conform to these cultural norms. If they don't, they fall out of favour. If you fall out of favour, you know what's going to happen to you as an Asian female. Men ain't going to go against the system. Why would they? They get fed, they get looked after, they get sexual intercourse when they want it. They got everything on the table for them.
I've certainly seen lots of young people who I thought would be really enlightened and really educated actually do hold these views. And I've tried to think about why that might be, and a lot of them are really confused. There's an identity crisis here. They feel they don't belong, and they think that they need to be traditional Pakistani or traditional Middle Eastern to give them an identity, and with that comes the customs that those areas used to have. One boy told me that he wanted me to realise what he was feeling, and he said, yeah, man is a piece of gold and woman is a piece of silk, and if you drop a piece of gold in mud, you can wipe it clean, but if you drop a piece of silk in mud, it's stained forever. And his perception of women was that they're tainted. They are forever tainted. They think that allowing girls their own choices is somehow diminishing the honour of the family.
After she left her husband, Banaz met Rahmat.
I think Banaz suddenly found a lot of freedom and a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure in meeting Rahmat.
Originally, theirs was just a friendship. They started to see each other and it developed into a full-blown relationship.
Rahmat, he's a lovely guy. They'd planned to have kids, they had names, they had plans for everything, yep.
The police recovered dozens of texts between Banaz and Rahmat. She contacted him every morning and every night, just before bed.
After Banaz left her husband, she was worried that men were following her in the street, and she felt that they had been sent by her husband.
I recognised one face, and he hasn't come to my house ever, but I've seen him on occasions on weddings and that. And even now, when I go out, I mean, one guy, as soon as I came out of the house, he was following me with a car. I heard someone calling my name in my language. So I turned around and he told me that he should give me a lift and I should go into his car. And I said no and just put my head down and keep walking. So that day he was just following me. People following me. Or still now they follow me. And that was the main reason that I came to the police station.
Okay.
That in the future or at any time, if anything happens to me, it's them.
If ever you're worried or afraid for your own safety, you must contact us straight away.
Yeah.
All right, I don't want you worrying, we can get somebody out. Even if it turns out to be nothing, at least, for your own peace of mind.
Now that I'm giving this statement, what can you do for me?
You've given us lines of inquiry that we will need to follow up.
Okay.
Okay. But we will let you know of what's going on as it's happening, really, just so that you're kept informed and up to date as to what's going on. Okay.
By going to the police, Banaz was putting herself at great risk. But after her death, a police complaint inquiry found no evidence that the police had made any effort at all to trace her husband or to investigate her case. It took the police 3 months just to write up a statement. This was one of 5 occasions that Banaz went to the police.
People following me, or still now they follow me.
They missed all the signs that she was in great danger.
Anyone who's at risk, the first people they call is police. And she called them so many times. If they believed her, if they wanted to help her, she could be alive today.
Now that I'm giving this statement, what can you do for me?
In Banaz's case, there were almost a landslide of mistakes flowing from a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness, some poor policing, which we all recognise now.
She died without any help, and her voice has never been heard by anyone. This is unbearable, and it's not at all acceptable in the UK.
Turn this light off. I think it's had the electricity on.
Banaz and Rahmat kept their relationship secret. But in December 2005, they were spotted here, outside Morden Tube Station.
This little parade of shops, Banaz and Rahmat were seen kissing each other. It was outside the tube station, which is just down the road here. Very quick to put the phone call into the head of the family. Guess what I've seen your niece doing? And that was what triggered the whole thing. And following that, there was what I would term a council of war at the home of Ari Mahmod, to which the men of the extended family were invited, and a decision was made there and then.
It was being orchestrated by the uncle, who was a stronger character than Banaz's father, and uncle in turn had said to the younger members of the community, what I want you to do is to kill Banaz.
Shame, embarrassment, or dishonour. Any of these 3 notions can lead to honour-based violence and can also lead to honour killings.
The thing about honour killings that makes them distinctive from other forms of violence against women is that they tend to have a very collaborative nature. They're a collective crime.
It's not your crime of passion, you know, it's not something that you spontaneously thought you could do something about. We're talking about organised crime, men sitting around a table who decided that she must die. That's how conspiratorial it was, that's how deep it was.
These families are very large, they're very interdependent. It can be seen as a necessity to sacrifice one for the sake of all the other members of that family.
On New Year's Eve, Banaz was tricked into going to her grandmother's house in Wimbledon. Her father said to her, you are required to come to your grandmother's house.
He then got her to carry in a suitcase into the house.
He'd also brought some brandy, and he virtually forced his daughter to drink brandy, obviously in the hope of stupefying her.
He told her to sit on the sofa, look at the television, don't turn round, don't look at what I'm doing. And she did turn around and look at her father, and she caught him coming up on her wearing rubber gloves, training shoes, and she became aware in that instant that she was going to be killed. She knew that she was going to be killed.
He is touching her neck. He tried to grab her from the back, but she managed to run away from the door.
She managed to escape from the back of the house, and she plunged her hands through the next-door neighbour's window to try and get attention. She climbed over a fence, staggered off up the road, bare feet, bleeding from her hands and wrists, and collapsed on the floor of a nearby cafe. Hospital staff that dealt with her on that night said they've never seen anyone so frightened in their life.
Ramat was contacted, and Ramat had the presence of mind, whilst Banaz was lying on a hospital trolley, to ask Banaz to tell him exactly what had happened, and at the same time he was recording on his mobile what she had to say.
أنت كانت مسجل الصوت من أخذ نقابته بوي هنا عم بكي فكر رجعوا بوي لك المو كيف كم قصوا لشيكو بخوة وردة نيو فرد سان حمودات رابو نوتايق بو هر تلفزيون كاو كرابو كان سعودي دوبار شخشات هاتو كالك رشي لبربون إروبوك بس كشف الشين لا تحشو دا بروما داري ايش سيدانش خوتي او الشام دانش ما دانش لو حتى اوتو جورتي لي هدي بارا زاد هذا هم لدرجاكي كرد اي دستف باك جاردن اللي ليش كيو ببصير خليك دو بيدا خلاص متخصصيات.
There was a woman police officer who disbelieved her completely. And she said, I believed it was just a girl who'd drunk too much, thought she was going to be in trouble, and therefore was making up this story.
And later, this same female police officer, she informed Banaz's father that she had raised this complaint against him, which, of course, ran horrendous risk of placing her even worse in danger than she had been before.
They went to her home to interview her in front of her family, and taking a statement of a woman that she's complaining against her own family in front of her family is just ridiculous.
It was a real failure of education, if you like, failure of training, and it was a shame in a police officer to find that. I think the hardest thing was that when she actually gave evidence, she was determined, as much as she could, to stick by her original account, and she wouldn't even... Maybe it's difficult, because if you're a police officer, it's hard to stand up in court and say, maybe I got that wrong. It's hard, isn't it? On the other hand, it was clear she had got it wrong.
After Banaz came out of hospital, she went and stayed with Ramat very briefly, but was then persuaded by her family to come and meet them at that McDonald's in Tooting, to persuade her to come home. Banaz had said something along the lines of, you know, if I run away, I'm dead. If I go home, I'm dead. You know, so that sense of absolute futility, which goes some way to explaining her decision to go home.
She didn't believe that her family would kill her. She thought that her mother can be someone that can help her at home and not let the other to harm her. She didn't thought about that her mother herself, she is a weak woman that cannot save her.
Shortly after their relationship was detected, Banaz and Ramat attempted to break up. It didn't last. They weren't able to keep away from each other, so the relationship continued despite them both at this stage knowing that they were at risk.
Ramat reported Banaz missing on the 25th of January.
If it hadn't been for Ramat, we would never have known about it. He was the person who reported her missing.
I was on call. It was my first week in charge of that team, and I had a phone call from a local detective inspector who was worried about one of his missing persons. Although it was only fairly scant detail that he was actually able to provide at that time, it was obvious from the outset that this was potentially a very serious situation.
And my job really was I was the intel sergeant, so my job was to deal with all the intelligence that we gathered.
I was part of Team 16 over at Lewisham, and I became the case officer. I was one of the detective sergeants.
Not a single member of the Kurdish community helped us. We didn't get any positive contribution from the community, and there must have been dozens, if not hundreds, of people that knew what had happened to Banaz. We encountered quite a wide scale of attempts and conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. Young men who made false statements, people saying that she was alive when in fact she wasn't.
There was lots of work that went on, and lots of red herrings, lots of things where we were looking at things, and it would take us a week to eliminate that line of the inquiry.
In involving themselves in it, that's enhancing their own image within the community. There were over 50 people involved to some degree or another in that murder. I think we found out within a couple of days of the investigation that Banaz had an older sister called Bekal who was estranged from the family. She wasn't living at the family home.
I had the police knocking on my door, asking if they could come in. And they said to me, "It's about your sister. Your sister's gone missing." So when they said to me she's gone missing and my family don't know, I knew that wasn't true. I knew that was not true because I just knew in my heart that, it's to do with the family members, the men. I knew it.
And in early March, someone from the Kurdish community had found Bekal, and she had had a phone call to say that she was going to be the next person to be killed. The risk to her was obviously phenomenal. We knew that people had traced her telephone, people knew roughly what area that she was living in, and we actually moved her from house to house to house at one point, just trying to keep her safe, to stop people finding her. This is a letter that was delivered by Banaz to her local police station on or around the 12th of December 2005. In it, she has given details of people that she has heard were going to be responsible for killing her. Numbers 2, 3, 4 and 5 have said that they're ready and willing to do the job of killing me and my boyfriend, and this was said by my uncle Ari Mahmod while my uncle was on the phone to my mum on the 2nd of December at around 6 to 7 that evening. He also said that he's going to kill me and my boyfriend, Ramat. And it's signed Banaz Mahmod. Just childlike writing, speaking literally from beyond the grave. This is what's going to happen to me. And from that letter, we were able subsequently to identify some of the people that she was talking about. And the letter was accurate in every detail of what she said about these men as Omar Hussein, Muhammad Ali, Mohammed Hammer. And those three men are all cousins, so they are cousins of Banaz and they are cousins of each other.
Mohammed Hammer was arrested. He was the first one to be charged.
It was a race against time. Because we had charged Mohammed Hammer, there is only a certain amount of time that you can keep someone in custody. And we still hadn't found the body. We couldn't even prove that Banaz was dead, much less that Mohammed Hammer had been the one to kill her at that point. So The race was really on to find Banaz's body. And the Mahmod family was showing no interest in this investigation whatsoever. They weren't ringing us up and saying, have you found my daughter yet? Or just absolutely no interest. Even when we were dragging the lake opposite their house, you know, no one came out or, you know, just no interest whatsoever. It's just such an absolute outrage that this girl is missing and nobody cares about her.
She was a completely innocent victim, and I think those things hit home, and you always do things for the victim's family. Is one thing we always, we always try and serve murders for the victim's family. With this one, we never tried to solve the murder for the victim's family. We tried to solve the murder for Banaz. Because, you know, that she didn't have anybody else. Her family had killed her.
The two Mohammeds followed a really strange pattern of behaviour in that their telephones were showing that they were coming back down to London, toing and froing between London and Birmingham.
Mohammed Hammer's car was a hire car. The GPS, or the equivalent in his car, meant that there was a record of every place it had been, and the police just sent up a helicopter to hover around the area where the cars had been parked.
We got some information about there being a freezer over the grave. And Carolyn and I were sitting there when we got this information. She went, we've seen that freezer, haven't we? And I went, yeah. We're sitting there trying to rack our brains. And she suddenly went, that's on the video. Where's the video? So we looked at it, and sure enough, it was, there's a freezer in this back garden that we see from the helicopter that I was up in. So that was it. We were like, that's got to be there. So Stuart and I got in the car and literally drove up there that night.
Once we were inside, we took with us a forensic archaeologist who looked at the ground outside in the rear garden and immediately saw that there had been a disturbance in the earth towards the back of the house.
She was in a fetal position. She was curled up like in a fetal position, which is somehow, I don't know, that somehow for me makes it even worse, that fetal position representing a child, almost like a child in a womb being in that suitcase. And the whole tragedy about this case for me is about that child-parent relationship that's gone horribly, horribly wrong. That poor young woman's body in that suitcase.
I had a knock on the door, and it was my family liaison officer. But she won't speak to me until I sit down and have a friend there with me, and just tears just floated out. I couldn't control myself. I wanted to just be out of my skin, just die. It was, you know, they said to me they'd found my sister buried in a suitcase, 6 foot down, and water pipes had broken while they'd put her down there. So it was quite severe, the situation, you know, it was quite horrible. It just shattered me into pieces. Not long after then, she, my family liaison officer, she brought me pictures of my sister. Worst thing I'll ever go through probably in my life. Seeing my own sister turn into ashes like that, that is enough to turn someone mad.
Now that we'd found the body of Banaz,
we decided that would give us enough evidence to charge Ari and Dad. Dad and Ari tried to blame the others and said they had nothing to do with it, it was down to them.
But both claimed to be very progressive and westernised and loving.
The father wasn't very persuasive. The uncle was very different. He was a very strong character, very strong, very sure of himself, very confident.
Beckle was the sister of Banaz. She gave evidence.
I have a maximum respect for Beckal for having the courage to give evidence against her family, knowing that your family would have you killed for doing it.
It certainly gave the jury an idea of what Banaz might have been like and how difficult it must have been to live in that family.
We know now that Banaz was murdered on the morning of the 24th of January. And from piecing together all of the evidence, the suspects met at Mohammed Hamma's address and then made their way to Banaz's home in Morden.
Quite deliberately, her father and her mother left the family home, leaving Banaz on the premises with one of her sisters.
And that meant the coast was clear for the men to come in.
It was Banaz's habit to sleep on the living room floor. There wasn't a bedroom for her. There wasn't sufficient room in the house, so she would sleep on the living room floor. And those three men, Muhammad Ali, Mohammed Hamma and Omar Hussein, came into the house, woken up to find three men bursting into your room and knowing at that point that you're going to be killed.
Mohammed Hamma, the police covertly, so secretly recorded conversations that he had.
And the pair of them were laughing about it. And he was boasting, blatantly boasting about what those men had done to Banaz on that morning. And them laughing and slapping each other on the back, you know, being manly. They were slapping her, fucking her. I have fucked her anally. The bitch's soul was not getting discharged with anything. It took more than half an hour. It was upstairs as well. I was aware. I swear to God, I didn't know she was there, fuck her. Ari, the bastard, lied to us. Ari said there was no one there. Well, I put my leg there on her back, Mohammed on her neck. He made the cord like a hook. I held her hand and said, quickly. I said, put it around quickly. And when she heard that, she was terrified. He immediately put the cord around her neck. She was vomiting. Well, he put the wire around her neck and gave it to me. Then I was holding to the cord so tight and stamping on her neck as well. When I stamped on the back of her neck, her mouth and nose were on the floor, and that was in the suitcase. I was saying, let her soul be discharged. I was kicking her head. The soul would not discharge that easily. The wire around her neck, it went deep through the skin. Her soul was not getting discharged. Because he was able to tighten it further, he tightened it around her neck, and it didn't take more than 4 to 5 minutes. Her soul was discharged, and she didn't make a sound.
So, do you agree to speak?
No, I'm sorry.
You don't want to tell your side of the story?
I'm sorry.
Who killed Banaz? Will you not agree to give us your side of the story? I'm doing a documentary about your case, and I'm wondering if you want to speak. Who killed Banaz? You're innocent, then who killed Banaz?
You are a liar. You are a liar. Your job is just to lie.
No, I'm saying...
You are a liar.
Who killed Banaz?
I don't know where I found this, but has any Banaz family member punched you?
They tried, but they couldn't. It was in the court during the trial, and they shouted at me that I am betraying Kurdish people, I am against honor killing, and I should keep quiet about honor killing within the community. On the contrary, actually, we are defending the Kurdish community. I have to say that the majority of the community are against that kind of violence, but this small minority, they had lots of power over the majority, and they make the whole community to keep quiet, keep silence, not saying anything, because then they will tell them you betray Kurdish community. We are not betraying them. We are defending the rights of people, the rights of women. We are the true Kurdish people.
In the United Kingdom, we have 12 honour killings a year, there or thereabouts. But we don't even know that. That's, I think, to my mind, an underestimate, because there is something called the export of murder. Or there are cases in which a victim is taken abroad and killed abroad, and they won't necessarily figure in the prosecutions that we do. So that's a dozen. The United Nations back in 2005-06 estimated 5,000 honour killings a year worldwide.
There's definitely a lot of honour-based violence occurring in Britain and in Europe. To say these are the tip of the iceberg is not just to say there are plenty more going on, but that even beneath that there's honour-based oppression where they don't even rebel, but where they kind of willingly will sacrifice their own aims and their own goals to those of the family, to those things that their parents have chosen for them.
Generally, when a child goes missing, who is it that reports the child gone missing? The family. But if the family are the reason why the child has gone missing, you're not going to get a report. You're not going to know that child is missing. We have no idea. What we do have is a significant underestimate.
Omar Hussein and Muhammad Ali had fled the UK before I was even aware that Banaz had been murdered. We've got Dad and Ari and Mohammed Hammer, and these are two other people who were actually two of the people physically present who killed her and disposed of her body. And to think that they had gone off to Iraq and getting reports back from people saying that they were boasting about their actions in the cafes there, I think you're not going to get away with that. You're just not going to get away with that.
It was shameful that there were people, those two individuals were able to celebrate publicly their involvement in Banaz's murder in Iraq.
No one could get away with murder. Not when we know who they are. That's just not acceptable. Banaz was part of us. You know, it just drove us on.
Let's push the boundaries. It's never been done. Let's get them back from Iraq. Right, how are we going to do that? Don't know.
Omar Hussein was virtually beyond the reaches of the law there. He could do pretty much as he wanted because his family are so powerful there.
He was being housed with his brother. His brother was quite a senior police officer over there.
And our information was that he was being sheltered.
I think over there a lot of people felt that they hadn't done anything wrong. So I think a lot of people felt Omar Hussein and Muhammad Ali shouldn't be extradited to Britain because what they did is right. They believed that because she brought dishonour, then she should be killed. And why are the British interfering with it?
Eventually, it transpired that he had an argument with one of his brothers, and that brother shot him in the leg with an AK-47, and he was arrested once he was at hospital.
Omar Hussein was trying to say that it wasn't him and that they got the wrong Omar Hussein and he shouldn't be extradited to England. Therefore, we had to go over there. We did follow them to the ends of the earth, really. You know what Caroline's like. She doesn't stop, so...
Yeah, and it took 3 years, but got it done in the end.
No Iraq national has been extradited from Iraq before, and we were the first ones to achieve that.
There are plenty of people around the country who tell me that they are actually wary of stepping into this minefield because they see it as a minefield. That the moment that they start talking about this issue locally, they will be branded racists. The fact is, it's been going on for centuries across cultures, across religions, all over the world.
Any idea that you can't speak about criminal offences because they take place in a part of the community which is a minority is appalling. I find that quite offensive as a member, if you like, of a minority community. I think it's much better for everybody if these things are brought into the open and discussed.
I think some people are happy. There's brown people wiping out brown people. How does it really affect me as a white person? Perhaps not a lot. It's their culture.
I go and visit Banaz's grave from time to time, and I'm not sure how many other people actually do that. And I'm not sure if anyone else would ever be able to find it, because that grave was left unmarked for years after the trial.
Right, it's round here somewhere, and I'm... Well, that is new. That is absolutely new, that marker. But I'm pleased that that's on there. That's good. Of course, what the family wanted was to wipe her name off the face of the earth. I think Beckal told me when I saw her the last time that she'd planted some lilies, some lily bulbs in there, which were her sister's favourite flowers. It's really nice. A bit early for them to be coming up yet, but it'd be nice when they come out.
It's my opinion that the best way to curb honour killings is through education. Nurses who see these people firsthand. I'm talking about police officers who have to police this. I'm talking about MPs who should be passing legislation and understanding the dynamics.
We just need some training, and we need to be raising awareness and talking about this issue and not letting it get swept under the carpet in the name of political correctness. Let's not do that. Let's confront the issues and deal with them.
I think the fact that honour is a total misnomer, there's no honour in any of this, the law has a word for it, it's murder.
There is very much a tendency to stereotype honour killings as if they were an entirely Muslim phenomenon. This is not the case. And it's not just that this perception leads to xenophobia and negative stereotypes about Muslims. This also means that authorities are in danger of missing women at risk. If they think that you have to be Muslim to be at risk and they don't provide protection because they don't believe you, then this is a very, very serious issue for women of other communities.
Do you feel like your life is still in danger?
Yes, I do. I feel like my life, it will always be in danger. Safety is something I dream of. Yep, something that I really, really am longing for, but in my circumstances, I don't think that's going to happen very time soon. I'm only doing this in the name of my sister, for my sister. And, she will always live on in my heart, in my life.
I certainly felt that we had become surrogate parents, because we didn't feel that she was loved by her own parents, that we took over that parenting role. But, and that doesn't mean that we were too close to the investigation. It just meant that we were showing her love and respect, and that someone should love her, someone should care. So we did, and we still do. I want people to remember Banaz as a loving, giving, warm young woman who did nothing wrong in her life other than to love someone that they disapproved of. That's how I want her to be remembered.
So my advice to the women out there is follow your dream. Leave home if you need to. Leave the area you're in if you have to. If your parents can't stand by you and love you and care for you, respect you for who you are, then you take your life away from them and you have a life.
I think one of the things that so many women are really scared of is the isolation.
But the isolation has to come or there's no happiness. I have been there, and I'll tell you something, I left home at just under 16 years old. You make friends that once you've left home, when you make friends that are there for you for life, and that's what you have to replace your family by. If your family can't be who they're supposed to be and be your family, then you make your own family. I am glad I left home, because if I was at home now, I wouldn't be at home, I would be in the back garden buried. I'm lucky I'm even here. So leaving home is the best thing I've ever done, and I wouldn't change it. I would just change one thing. I should have taken Banaz with me.